Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Jays Sit Down podcast. I'm your host, Jaden, and today we're going to be talking about the Cincinnati Bengals and why this team is in trouble going into the 2025 NFL season. The Bengals are a team I don't talk much about on this podcast, but today I want to talk about them because there are some things specifically that are going on with them that really, man, like looking, league wide, it's just like, wow, you look at the Bengals as opposed to some other teams, and it's like, what are they doing? So we're going to get into that a little bit here on the podcast today. But if you have not already, please go check us out right here on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button, Jays Fit Down. And also find us on TikTok, Jays Fit Down Pod. We're there on Instagram, Jays Fit Down Pod. So make sure you give us a follow there so on post notifications. And we're on whatever podcast platform you listen to, audio wise. So you're working out, driving, you're at work, whatever you're doing, you want to listen to the show, please do that. I would greatly appreciate it. So let's get started, guys. So the Cincinnati Bengals, right? So this team last year did not make the playoffs, and in large part that was due to the defense. The defense for the Bengals was very atrocious, and I'm watching them last year because I did watch a good bit of Cincinnati games last year and this past NFL season. And I'm like, man, it's a shame because the offense was phenomenal. And, Joe Burrow put up a great season, one of his best seasons being a pro. He had 4,918 passing yards, 43 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Jamar Chase led the NFL in receiving with 127 catches for 1,708 yards and 17 touchdowns. So Tee Higgins also had a good year, right? And both of those guys were awarded with contract extensions along with Joe Burrow. So they paid their guys, those three guys at least. We'll get to the other guy they need to pay in a second. Offensively, man, they had a great season, man. The offense was, as usual, man, just what you expect out of a trio, of Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow and Tee Higgins, right? And but unfortunately for them, the defense just was not on the same level. Defensively, the Bengals were just not good. Like I said, they 25th in total defense. They allowed 348.3 yards per game, 24th NFL with 36 sacks. In their red zone scoring percentage allowed for opponents 67.92%, which ranked for 30th. They were kind of middle in the league, like middle of the pack as far as passing yards allowed. They weren't horrible at that. Around like 20, ranked 21 or so. And they ranked 8th in turnovers per game, though. As they in turnovers total for the season, they snagged 30 turnovers. Which was good on that part, and Trey Hendrickson, of course, led the team with 17 and a half sacks. And so overall, man, like it's just, and the Bengals fired Lou Anarumo, and which I don't think was the exact problem. I think it was more so a personnel thing than anything. Their secondary wasn't that good, just a lot of personnel issues is what I believe was what was plaguing Cincinnati. And they had a few injuries here and there, but overall, man, it's just like you just didn't have guys in the right positions, guys in the right spots where they needed to be. And that's when I was watching Cincinnati. That's what I was thinking. Like, this team, man, they really could have been an AFC Championship game last year if their defense was like above, like at least. If they had like a top 15 defense, top 15 defense, not even top 10, maybe top 15 defense, I think they could have made the playoffs, but they didn't, And so it's a shame for Joe Burrow because, man, like he missed time the previous season with that wrist injury. He came back and he was healthy, and man, they're out there scoring like 30 points or whatever a game, and then defense is giving that same amount up. And in football, and you can really say this about basketball and other sports too, but if you are allowing or giving up the same amount of points that you are scoring, you're not going to win, right? Defense is very important. There's an old saying goes, defense wins championships, right? And maybe that adage just kind of shifted, recently. It's a teeny bit, but not for not majority, because it's like, look at the Eagles and their amazing defense that they had this past season, which is why they won the Super Bowl, right? Because they were able to cause consistent pressure on Patrick Mahomes, and they just had like dogs everywhere across the defense. And defense is very important, man. If you want to win in the NFL, especially Super Bowls, you got to have a good defense, and Cincinnati, man, the Bengals just didn't have one, and it cost them. It cost them a lot. Cost them a lot of games. And if you're on the offense side of football, then that sucks for you, because like, man, we're going out here, we're putting together good drives, consistent drives, and then we're giving up points, and then we got to go out there and match the other team. And they're putting up points and things like that. And it's like we got to go out there and match them, and it's just this constant back and forth. Nobody likes being in those back and forth games. I know it's entertaining for the fans, right? I used to play football, and I'm a fan now of football. But being an analyst and being a fan, it's like, you want to see those exciting games, but at the same time, still having that old player mindset in me. It's like, man, we want to dominate teams. We don't want them scoring. If we're putting up 48 points, man, we want them to have 0. That's you know what I'm saying? Like, obviously in the NFL, you don't really have blowouts like that as much as you would in the lower levels. But, if it's like 48-3 or 48-10, it's like, you know what I'm saying, stuff like that. But like 48-45 or 48-40 or 30-25, we don't like those type of games to your players, because it's like, that means that that your defense did not do its job. And if you're on the defense side of football, you didn't do your job, because, the goal is to keep the other team from scoring as much as possible, and so that being the case, I'm like, man, like, it sucks, when you're when you're playing offense, and then it's like, your defense can't help you out there, so I know for Burrow and those guys on offense that it's not fun, but I think moving forward in 2025, the Bengals are definitely going to be in trouble if they don't get that defense turned around. And I don't think it's going to get turned around in the span of an offseason, especially you hiring a new defensive coordinator, and everything like that. And you could lose Trey Hendrickson, possibly, they still haven't given him his money, which is the guy I was talking about earlier. So, I mean, and you need to pay him. You paid Jamar, you paid T, you paid Joe Burrow. Now pay Trey Hendrickson, man. This guy was like really the only consistent player on your defense the whole entire season. He still has not been paid. That's very odd to me. And you don't, organizationally, man, they're just things that the Bengals do that just do not make a whole lot of sense. And there is something else that really has been the talk of the town with Shamar Stewart, their first round pick, which I'll get to in a second. But yeah, Trey Hendrickson, man, like, this dude's a beast, man. Ever since he came into the league, from New Orleans, he's been a stud. And when the Bengals went and picked him up, that was a great move for them, because that was the year that they went to the Super Bowl in the 2021 season. He was a huge part of that defense, man. The Bengals had their defense was pretty good that year, but subsequently, the next couple of years, it's kind of that they've, draft wise, they haven't really made some questionable draft decisions on that side of the ball and things like that. And, it's cost them. You got guys that are out of position, things like that. It's just a lot of systematic things going on. I don't think it's more so a coaching thing specifically. I just don't think they have the right players at the right positions, or they just don't. Yeah, they don't have the right players at the right positions, and that's something that I took note of. But man, they got to pay Trey Hendrickson though. They got to pay him. Like, otherwise, if he's not going to play, and I don't know if he's already specifically requested a trade or not. I remember hearing something about that, but I don't know if he actually did officially request a trade from Cincinnati. Obviously they want him there, but they're not acting like it, but they want him there. They need him there. So, my question is, why haven't they took care of his contract yet? And that's the interesting thing to me. Now, on the flip side of that, on the other side here, you got Shamar Stewart, who was our first round pick, who had not been signed at all, like this year. His rookie contract has not been signed. He actually went back to Texas A&M and was reportedly practicing with the team. So I don't think he's even in the NFL anymore. I think he decided to go back to college to play college football. So That's an interesting move. I don't know if we've ever seen that in the NFL before, like where we had a player get drafted and then he didn't sign his contract and then he goes back to college football to play. I don't know if we've ever had that before or not. So that's really interesting. But hey, it's the NFL, man. Like you never know what you're gonna get. So it's like you can never be surprised in this business, right? So it's something that I've kind of learned so far here. But like I said, overall, I think next season is going to be very important for Cincinnati. I think they got to get the defense addressed. It's got to be better. Otherwise, they're going to be back in the same position. And you're ruining Joe Burrow's career if you keep doing this. Like Joe is a great player, but it's like since that Super Bowl season, I mean, it just hasn't been. He's healthy and he's putting up these good numbers, but man, you got to help him out. You got to balance it out, man, and have the other parts of the team, the other anchors of the team, be on par level with your offense. Otherwise, that well-oiled machine that is your football team is not going to work. So there's something I wanted to come on and talk about on the podcast today. But make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. Check us out here on Jason Down on YouTube and follow us on TikTok, Instagram, all that good stuff. And we will see you next time.